Number 10. Washington Monument. This is one of those things that I wish I got to do as a job, you know? Like, YouTube's fun, but also this is pretty fun too. But again, I have a fear of heights, so there's no way I could physically do this ever. You can go inside the Washington Monument, that's no surprise nor secret. But did you know there's a secret hatch hiding at the very top? In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter has to save his classmates. They're stuck in the elevator shaft in the monument. Now, in order to reach them before they fall, he has to kick through this tiny window at the very top. He almost doesn't make it. It takes like 3 good Spidey kicks. Turns out he could have crawled 4 feet higher to the top and opened this secret hatch. And then guy could have called it a day, easy. No web fluid nor powers needed, my friends. Also a pretty boring climax. Yeah, you don't need Spider-Man to clean the monument, just people who aren't afraid of heights. Then they pop out of this. They open the hatch and then they just sweep it. I can't even look at this photo, I feel sick to my stomach. Number 9, secret insect room. Okay, back to the buggy weirdness, here we go. If you're in Liverpool and you love insects, okay, very specific, but I have just the place for you. Inside the World Museum in Liverpool lies a secret room, and inside it contains 1 million insects. Yeah, I'm itchy just thinking about this room. They're all dead, by the way, unlike the other ones that I mentioned. These ones aren't ripping apart any carcassi. Carcasses? Yeah, carcassi, sounds fun. This collection began back in 1855. The 13th Earl of Derby. He's like, you know what I need? A cupboard full of shiny bugs. Let's start that. Thousands of specimens hide in this room, including the world's largest beetle and moth. So gross. I almost had a little saliva when I said that. It felt really gross saying that. The world's largest beetle. Oh, it's so gross. They're so shiny. Imagine Night at the Museum, but it takes place here at the World Museum in London. Bugs everywhere. Ben Stiller wouldn't make it out. No way. No way in hell. Owen Wilson? Little Owen Wilson? Toast. Number 8. Eiffel Tower apartment. I live on the 11th floor, and let me tell you, way too high. That's like 10 stories higher than I could preferably handle. Like I mentioned earlier, I am not a fan of heights at all. My legs get all shaky. Maybe it's because I'm tall already. I don't know, but it sucks. But this one here gives me a hard time as well. Above the Eiffel Tower, above the main observation deck, when it was completed back in 1889, Gustave Eiffel, the, Mr. Eiffel himself who made the blueprints, he included for himself a sweet little condo at the very top. This 100 square meter room sounds spacey at first, but it was full of gear, the elevator shaft was there, it was kind of like Harry Potter's closet in comparison to the rest of the house, you know what I mean? This room had a kitchen, bathroom, thank God, and a living room. God forbid you open a window though. Papers would be all over the place. Gustave's hair must have been messy all the time.
In our number 7 spot today, we have Lake Vostok. Many of us have heard of Atlantis, but have you heard of Lake Vostok? Okay, there's probably no underwater city here, so maybe that was a bit of an exaggeration, but it is still very cool. This lake is located in Antarctica, and it is so huge, it's one of the largest lakes in the entire world. The lake not only has like a large surface area, but it's also really deep, which only adds to the volume of the lake. So here's the thing about it though, it is covered by ice, and not just any ice, but the East Antarctic ice sheet, which is just the largest ice sheet in the world. The subglacial lake has ice so thick that we don't know a lot about what lies beneath it, and the ice has been there for millions of years. When the first samples of the actual lake water were taken, it became very apparent that there may be species in the lake that we know absolutely nothing about. In our number 6 spot today, we have Mohenjo-Daro. This is a location whose name is roughly translated to Mound of the Dead Men. This is one of the world's oldest urban settlements, as it was found and built somewhere around 2600 to 2500 BC in what is now Pakistan, but it was abandoned in the 19th century BC as the civilization that called this place home declined. For almost 4,000 years, this site was seemingly forgotten about, and the remains of it were undocumented until an officer of the Archaeological Survey of India, a flint scraper, which convinced him of the site's history. From here, excavations of the site began, and as of the 1980s, it was named a World Heritage Site. In our number 5 spot today, we have Mount Roraima. This mountain features something that at the beginning we talked about a little bit on this list, and that is how the top of this mountain is flat like a tabletop. This mountain sits on the border of Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil, and the other tabletop mountains that are found in this park, along with this one, are said to be some of the oldest geological formations on Earth, dating back to around 2 billion years ago. This mountain is the highest in the area and has rain almost every day. The top is mostly sandstone with just a few bushes and algae, but many of the species found here are very much unique to the area. In our number 4 spot today we have Heraklion, also known as Thonis to the Egyptians. This was an ancient city that was located near the mouth of the Nile River. Greek legend says that this was the city where Hercules took his first steps into Africa, as well as the place where Paris hid Helen before the Trojan War began. This is all to say that, to legend, the city was super important, but aside from the legend, no one knew where this place was or how to find it. Well, just over 2,000 years ago, it turns out that either an earthquake or a tsunami or a combination of the two hit the city and submerged it underwater. It used to be believed that Thonis and Heraklion were two separate places and that both were located on what is now Egyptian mainland, but neither of those things turned out to be true. In reality, in 1999, after 5 years of searching, archaeologist Frank Gaudio located the ruins of the city underwater as they had been submerged in the ocean. Since then, excavations and explorations of this ancient city have taken place, and it was stocked full of some incredibly cool treasures from thousands of years ago. In 2010, a type of ancient Nile riverboat was found here, and even just recently, in August of 2021, it was announced that wicker baskets that contained fruits of the duum palm tree, as well as grape seeds that date back to the early 4th century BC, had been found among the ruins.
Number 3. Grand Central Tennis Court. It's kind of hard to mention the Supreme Court without talking about the tennis courts at Grand Central. Yeah, those exist too. Let's do it. In the early 1800s, trade and banking fueled the city, specifically via railroad. Both freight and passenger was booming, right? We love trains, gotta get those train bonds. So come 1871, Grand Central now opens up, but the Vanderbilt Tennis Club opened in 1965. Wasn't even tennis either. This room had also been a recording studio, an art gallery, and hosted breakdancing, boxing, double dutch tournaments, you name it. If you ever see a sweaty guy walk out of a janitor's closet with a bunch of tennis balls, go in there, go poke around a bit. Something's going on. It's like when Spider-Man comes out of the closet in Spider-Man 2 with all the pizzas. Nobody asks questions. They're like, hey, where'd that guy just come from? Where'd all this delicious pizzas come from? Number 2, cursed music box. Okay, we gotta include another horrifying element from the Warren Occult Museum. We all love that in the other parts, so let's continue it. The Perrin family music box. Remember this? Director James Wan wanted to use the music box in the first film, in The Conjuring, because mirrors and creepy tones make for great suspense, of course. But also, this was a real haunted artifact from the real house. Today, the box is safely stored in the Warren's Occult Museum, alongside other items that look more or less normal upon first glance, and then you get close and your soul becomes possessed. You know, they're all haunted, never go in this room. This part in the movie actually scared the shit out of me. Any mirror scene, I can't do it. I just end up eating my shirt. And finally, number 1. Mayan underworld. Going back over to the ancient Maya, let's finish off strong. Back in 2003, quite recent, in Mexico, archaeologist Sergio Gomez arrived to work. The beautiful Mayan serpent pyramid, that's where he worked, right? What a gig. Out of nowhere, there was a sinkhole that just appeared overnight on property, but it was super close to the actual pyramid. So Sergio covered it with a tent quickly, obviously not knowing where to begin with this now stressful situation at one of the most historical sites on the planet. Sergio had to go in there and figure out where it led to, right? That's obviously the next question. Sergio had been working there for 30 years prior. He knew the serpent pyramid pretty well at that point, but what he found that day was hiding underneath him that entire time, for 30 years. He got a few coworkers to lower him into the fresh sinkhole, so right off the bat, this guy deserves a raise. Let's do that, let's figure that out first. He was lowered into this secret tunnel, this ancient tunnel. This tunnel was blocked off purposely thousands of years ago, so there's lots of work to be done, but why was it blocked off, right? That's the big question. The tunnel was excavated for about a year afterwards, and it was determined that it was blocked on purpose to stop people from going back and forth. Because all of these pyramids connected to one another. The tunnel connected the Serpent Pyramid to the Temple of the Moon and to the Temple of the Sun. Now, it's one thing to discover secret tunnels and pyramid entrances your entire life, but to fall down another layer of secrets almost 30 years later, I don't know, it's kinda something's afoot here. I have a feeling we'll never know who really built these or why, but I'm on it. I'm figuring it out.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Zone Rouge. This area, also referred to as the Red Zone, is an area of France that is one of the most restricted on Earth. Located in northeastern France, it is said that this chain of uninhabited areas was completely destroyed after the events of the First World War. The area contains a mass amount of both human and animal remains, along with way too many unexploded weapons that have gone on to contaminate the surrounding water and land. This has led to the French government prohibiting any kind of activity in the areas that includes any sort of agriculture or settlement. I mean, I wouldn't particularly want to risk it with an undetonated explosive, so it completely makes sense as to why this area would be restricted. In our number 9 spot today, we have Poveglia Island. This small island that sits between Venice and Lido in northern Italy might be familiar to you because of the eerie tales surrounding it. While believers of the paranormal often refer to it as the most haunted island out there, the real historical stories behind the tales of the hauntings just might back those claims up. The island became a quarantine colony in the 1700s for those suffering from the bubonic plague. That definitely sounds like a bit of a living hell. In the early 20th century, the island instead became an asylum for those in the area who were struggling with their mental health. During this period in the island's history, it has been rumored that many twisted doctors used the island's privacy as a way to practice cruel and inhumane experiments. It is no wonder that after these two dark periods in the island's history, it became abandoned. The island sits empty now. I mean, unless you believe in ghosts, then I'm sure the island is full of them. No one, tourists or locals, are allowed to visit without some serious paperwork being involved, so as they say, visit at your own risk. In our number 8 spot today, we have Mezgor. This is a location in Russia that finds its home in the Ural Mountains. This little town is top secret and is completely forbidden to any kind of visitor. This is said to be because the town is apparently home to Russia's nuclear missiles, and the rules are so strict that people aren't even allowed near the town or in its vicinity. There are also rumors that suggest that this town contains Mount Yamantau, and that inside this mountain there is the Russian government's extensive bunker, making this just another reason why the town is completely cut off to anyone who isn't a very high-ranking official.
Number 7. Trafalgar Square. Come on down to Trafalgar Square. We got tiny police stations. It's a Rick and Morty joke. Little Brits? Come on, that's a great one. Back in 1926, strikes and protests were every other week. It's almost like, increase to labor and a 13% wage cut is a bad thing. Weird, odd. So workers in every industry all went on strike. They stopped working for 9 days, and most of these protests would happen in London's Trafalgar Square. So in order to keep an eye on things without looking like you're, keeping an eye on things in 1926, walking around smacking a bat in your hands, blowing smoke in people's faces, that kind of stuff. They do in Peaky Blinders. Yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't really calm a crowd down. So instead, the police built a tiny, secret police station in one of the large light posts. Yeah, they're just hiding on a light post, just ready to tackle someone. Imagine a dog starts peeing on the post and then all of a sudden 15 police officers come out of said light post. I'd be so confused. I'd be confused for the rest of my life. It looks fake. It looks like a little information kiosk. Nope, just a SWAT team inside, ready to go. Number 6, Supreme Court basketball court. A court in a court? What is this, Inception? What's going on here? This is the Supreme Court, mainly referred to as the highest court in the land. Back in the 40s, this was the storage room for the courthouse, but over time, it turned into a workout room, being so large, I wouldn't even call that a storage room in the first place, right? But courthouse employees would work out there, and eventually some genius decided to throw up a couple of backboards. So yes, there's a basketball court right above the Supreme Court. Yeah, imagine hearing players' shoes squeaking during a trial. Your Honor, I believe somebody just got juked out. I don't know, that's what it sounds like. Number 5, Brooklyn Bridge Wine Cellar. Here we go. I'm not a wine guy myself, but I respect sommeliers. They all have that cool mustache and like to mansplain to you about grapes. Very, very good job. I like it. I like getting mansplained about what I'm drinking and why I'm drinking it. They have books about wine just stored in their head at all times. It's a very impressive job. They know everything about grapes, and they're also pretty cool. What a dream job. Wine is a lifestyle to many, so if you live in New York City and you're a big fan of Merlot, well, listen up. The Brooklyn Bridge connects Manhattan and Brooklyn, right? It was built in 1883, and at the time, it was the longest bridge in the world, until 1903. Chief Bridge Engineer John A. Roebling, as well as his son, Washington Roebling, Cool name. They both worked on the building plans, and in order to help the city financially, after you just spent $15 million on a bridge, they included 2 wine cellars, one on each shore, as well as other chambers that could be rented out. Not a bad gig, not a bad Airbnb if you ask me. The plan worked, and over the following 40 years, wine was stored in the dark, cool granite cellars on both sides. Number 4. Mount Rushmore. When sculptor Gutzon Borglum carefully planned out his designs for Mount Rushmore, the iconic American landmark in South Dakota, he included a hidden room. The room's purpose was to ideally be a time capsule, right? In a titanium vault full of records telling the story of Mount Rushmore's construction and all that American stuff, so it doesn't get lost thousands of years in the future. Now, I think carving presidents' faces into the sacred land of natives was enough, but sure, let's add a vault. The Hall of Records was meant to be this massive hall with an 800-foot staircase, bronze walls, a massive bronze eagle. He wanted future generations to look at this place in awe as we do like Stonehenge, right? Work began in July 1938, but after a year, the project was put on halt to, focus on the president's first maybe. Let's finish that job before we do the secret vault in the back. Borglum sadly passed away in 1941, so the 70-foot cave that was completed was now the vault. Yeah, not as big or flashy as he wanted in the first place, but still, there is a titanium vault behind the 1,200-pound slab of granite.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the Fukushima exclusion zone. Back in 2011, there was the Fukushima nuclear disaster which struck Japan. Because of this horrible incident, residents located within 18 miles of the plant were urged to evacuate, similar to the Chernobyl nuclear disaster that we already talked about. In fact, this meltdown and Chernobyl's are the only 2 events to receive a level 7 event classification on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Because of this extreme radiation contamination, no one is allowed to enter the premises. Of course, I can't see why anyone would want to, but there are people who want to take the risk. This includes a 27-year-old photographer who decided to illegally sneak into the exclusion zone. He explained that it looked like a real-life version of Fallout, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's what it's based on. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Lascaux Cave. This cave is located in France, and it got itself the title of being a UNESCO World Heritage Site after its discovery in 1940 due to the incredible prehistoric paintings that can be seen on the walls. Of course, because of this became a popular tourist destination, and people were jumping at the chance to see these works of art completed by the early humans, but as it turns out, breathing is not good for the art, which poses quite a problem. The carbon monoxide that visitors were expelling was beginning to cause damage to these cave paintings, and of course, once they're gone, there's nothing that we can do to get them back. This led to the site being closed to the public in 1963. Now, the only people allowed in are researchers and preservationists who work to make sure the art stays for as long as possible. In our number 1 spot today, we have Metro 2. During the time where Stalin was in power, it is said that he instructed that an underground secret transport system would be built known as Metro 2. This mysterious underground system is said to connect different administrative institutions, and it's even rumored that it contains apartments and different technical rooms, sort of like a secret escape tunnel for high-level officials. Of course, it's completely blocked off to outsiders or the general public, and while the Moscow Metro administration denies that these tunnels even exist, there was an urban exploration group back in 1994 that claimed to have found the entrance. At this point in time, the existence of only one of the rumored 4 lines has been confirmed, and it is called D6.
Number 10. Medici Chapels. This one begins with an epic discovery. Back in 1975, the director of the Medici Chapels Museum in Florence, Italy, he was searching for a new exit route for visitors. He was trying to expand whilst controlling traffic a little more. We love that. We love big moves. Now, in doing so, the director stumbled across this trap door beneath a closet. And there also lied a few clues on the walls. There were sketches and drawings, the style of which seemed to belong to one Leonardo da Vinci. Not a bad find at all, my friends. This room was immediately closed for renovations. It was held a secret until 2020, so for many this is still widely unknown. I hope you've learned a thing or two already on this list. We're not even at number 9 yet, and you already know about some ancient trapdoors in Italy. There you go. Number 8. Whaley House. Located in San Diego and built in 1857, the Whaley House is an example of, why you don't build your house on cursed land. The site that this family home was built on was also the location of San Diego's first public gallows. Yeah, what a fun fact that is. Nice, rich history here. And apparently right after moving in, Thomas Whaley said he himself could hear the footsteps of Yankee Jim Robinson, who had previously lost his life in the same gallows only 4 years prior. After the family had settled in, they experienced a bunch of family tragedies, most of which actually happened inside of the house, hence the, cursed land aspect. As of today, the Whaley House is now a museum, and apparently the family members continue to haunt said site.
In our number 7 spot today, we have Snake Island, one of my favorites. This island is located in Brazil, and it is one of the most dangerous islands in the entire world, and that is because it is absolutely filled to the brim with, you guessed it, snakes. It is thought that Snake Island came to be when the snakes got trapped as a result of the rising sea levels, which disconnected this island from the mainland. The reason people aren't allowed to visit is obviously to protect the humans who want to go, but also to protect the snakes that live here, as some of them aren't seen anywhere else in the world, likely because of the lack of human interference. There's a critically endangered species of snake called a golden lancehead, and on this island there are about 4,000 of them, which is critical to the species being able to continue on. As of now, there are only a few select researchers and the Brazilian Navy who are permitted to go to the island. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Back in 1986, there was the tragic event of the accidental nuclear meltdown at the Chernobyl nuclear plant. The aftermath of this disaster took many lives, and it also rendered the area unsafe for years to come. While some of the areas surrounding the disaster are relatively safe now, there is still an area called the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is strictly forbidden because of the radioactive contamination. You would think the threat of a horrible death, or at least some painful side effects, might be enough to keep people out, but that is not the case. Throughout the years, people have continually tried to sneak into this zone to catch a glimpse at what exactly it holds. In our number 5 spot today, we have Morgan Island. This is a place that is also referred to as Monkey Island, and this is due to the colony of about 4,000 rhesus monkeys who call this place home. The thing is though, the monkeys aren't originally from this South Carolina island. Who would have thought? They were actually relocated here from Puerto Rico. Basically, these monkeys were living in a sort of research center before they moved to this island. But that research center was becoming overpopulated, and some of the monkeys who carried infectious diseases were escaping, which posed quite a health and safety risk to everyone around. This is when South Carolina stepped in randomly and offered this completely uninhabited island as a place for the monkeys to go, and then they could be researched. There are now laws that prohibit anyone from visiting this island for both yours as well as the monkey's safety. In our number 4 spot today, we have North Brother Island. This island is located in the United States on the East River in New York, in between the Bronx and Rikers Island. This island used to be the home of Riverside Hospital, and back in the 19th century, this hospital saw it all. The hospital was used as a place to quarantine those who were suffering from diseases like tuberculosis, yellow fever, or smallpox. Definitely already a grim start, but later the hospital found a new purpose, and that was after World War II, where they used it to house veterans. After this, the hospital turned into an addiction treatment facility until it finally closed its doors in the early 1960s. When the hospital shut down, it was simply left to lay abandoned. Now the island remains abandoned by humans and is closed to the public because it has found some new residents. The island now serves as a nesting colony for black-crowned night herons. Just a random tidbit of info, I guess.
Number 3, hidden Mickeys. I had some hidden Mickeys myself growing up, but these ones are a little bit different. We'll make it a little brighter now before we get to our top 3. Here we go. But Walt Disney himself said, "I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse." I got to thinking, which mouse? Stuart Little, the mouse with an ear on its back, that's iconic, or Mickey Mouse, the iconic 3 circles, right? If you're visiting Disney Orlando anytime soon, first of all, have fun, mad FOMO. Second of all, keep an eye open for the hundreds of Mickey Mouse symbols. They're hidden on the walls, the floors, paintings. It's actually kind of creepy. No one knows how many there are. In total, there's rumored to be over 1,000 hidden Mickeys. How many did you find? Maybe like 4 or 5, I bet. Probably hard to see. Number 2. Death Valley. Okay, and we're back into the bad stuff. We love it. With a name like Death Valley, it's gonna be pretty bad, right? There's a Death Valley in Zelda. That one's That one's pretty bad. That one sucks. A lot of curses there. Death Valley sits on the California-Nevada border. It's known for, of course, its extreme heat. It's one of the hottest places on Earth. The only desert on the planet that comes close to the same level of heat is in the Middle East and Africa. It's like a different planet, Death Valley. It's horrible. Not a lot of people know just how bad it is. In July 2018, it was considered the hottest place the Earth has ever seen. For 4 days in a row, the average temperature hit as high as 127 degrees Fahrenheit. For all you Canadians, that's 52 degrees Celsius. Imagine it's 52 outside. Not even close right now and I'm already sweating. Yuck. Never visit Death Valley. So many curses. You'll sweat and turn into bones. Animals, carcasses, not good. And finally, number 1, the secret bowling alley. Okay, we'll end this list on a fun note because it's the weekend, okay? It's Saturday, we're all out here having a good time. The Frick Collection resides on the former home of Henry Frick. This is on Manhattan's Upper East Side. A handful of you have probably seen it or have been there. We have like the CN Tower and an aquarium. I'm like, we don't have any cool museums. This collection is a museum in itself. It contains paintings, sculptures, furniture, all historical, mind you, and all made from European artists as far back as the 13th century. The mansion itself is rather new. That was built in 1913, and of course it was also used as the Frick's family resident at one point. A rich family in the early 1900s. Nice, you already know there's a lot of secret rooms in there. But what was hiding in there? Apparently some fun rich family stuff, not a lot of curses. Like for example, a 2-lane bowling alley that was built in 1914. That's fun, we like that. Or a secret billiards room. Again, we like that as well. A wood shop, a little creepy, we'll kind of skip past that one. But how about this tiny diner? So good, we love secret stuff. I don't know, any secret? That sounds a little hollow there. I'm gonna check that out after work. Something's afoot back there.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Helic. According to Greek legend, Helic was a place that was destroyed by Poseidon, the god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. He was upset because those who resided in Helic were refusing to give their statue of Poseidon or even a copy of it to the Ionian colonists in Asia Minor, which is now modern Turkey. Our modern archaeology, along with ancient sources, have been able to deduce that an earthquake in 373 BC caused the ground beneath the entire city to completely liquefy. From here, a tsunami then hit and totally engulfed the city, and it is said that this all happened in the span of an hour or so, which left no survivors at all. In the 1980s and the 1990s, under the direction of archaeologist Dora Katsanapalu and physicist Steven Suter, a more accurate location for where Helic may have been came to light, and in 2001, the ancient city was located. Every summer, excavations continued to be carried out, and every year we learn more about this area and the secrets it holds that come all of the way from prehistoric times. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Cima Humboldt. Cima Humboldt is a huge sinkhole that is located in Venezuela. Sinkholes certainly are very interesting, but not necessarily never before seen, so you might be wondering what's going on with this one that makes it necessary to put on this list. Well, firstly, it's huge. Its volume is around 18 million meters cubed. The second reason is because of its location. This sinkhole is located on a tepu, which is like a tabletop mountain, and the sinkhole is located on the only forested tepu. And finally, because of the size of it, the Cima Humboldt features its own ecosystem located at the bottom where many new plants and animal species have been discovered. Apparently, locals of the area believe this sinkhole is actually a place of evil, so while it looks very cool and actually quite beautiful, maybe something more sinister is lurking around. In our number 8 spot today, we have Corral. An American history professor named Paul Kosuk was absolutely fascinated by ancient settlements, like I'm sure a lot of us are, but this passion led to him devoting much of his time to studying in Peru, which has such an incredibly rich history. In 1948, while in Peru, Paul made the discovery he had been waiting for when he came across the dry remains of an ancient city. The remains were carbon dated and placed to be about 5,000 years old. The city of Corral was once the home to around 3,000 inhabitants pre-Inca, and this was already a thriving location while the pyramids were being built. That is how old this settlement is. It appeared to be quite a peaceful place as there was no obvious signs of battles or weapons, but among the remains were homes, plazas, temples, and an amphitheater. It is said that the city was abandoned in 2000 BC, and in 2009 AD, it was made a World Heritage Site.
Number 7, Lake Acid. Nice, a nice acid lake to cool off. It's also referred to as the gateway to hell. Rightfully so. The Danakil Depression is made up of boiling hot ponds that release chlorine and sulfur gases into the air. So you don't even have to take a dip in this acid lake. Just standing around it can simply kill you. So where does something like this come from, besides science fiction horror films? How does a lake of acid just come to be? What did we do to you to deserve an acid lake, my friend? This horrifying landscape is the result of 3 continental plates being torn apart. Yeah, it's part of the East African Rift System. So not 1, but 2 active volcanoes surround the Danakil Depression. Hence the, bubbling magma lurking below the dry landscape. That explains it. 2 volcanoes. It's one of the hottest places on Earth for a reason. Active hydrothermal ozones aren't new per se, that's what Yellowstone National Park is, but you need a gas mask to go to this park, so we'll stick to Yellowstone for now. Number 6, British Museum's adult room. Better clean your eyes after this one. Some dirty stuff coming in. The British Museum, they have this long lost adult themed room, and it's exactly what you think when I say adult themed, right? The museum itself dates back to the mid-1700s. In its initial opening, the museum only let 10 people in at a time. Now, of course, it holds many more every day, but some collections not everybody can handle. It's not for everybody's eyes. In the Victorian era, the museum had a secret room for obscene objects, or objects that are deemed perverse. There's just a part of a temple wall that shows the dirty deed, just intimate ancient yoga, just carved in, right? Not going anywhere. In the collection includes a Roman terracotta lamp that depicts a naked woman on a crocodile. There's also a cabinet of obscene objects, which is just a cool name. Sounds like a Harry Potter book, doesn't it? Number 5, flesh-eating beetle room. Okay, enough talk about ancient butts. Let's move on to some weird stuff again, shall we? In Chicago's Field Museum, this one's chock full of secret rooms. I feel sick immediately just reading about this. The Field Museum uses hide beetles to clean its specimens. Real beetles to eat the stuff. Yeah, in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime, these beetles are on the clock. They're business oriented, they come in just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned. Nothing but bones left, how gross is that? Imagine this is where Peter Parker got his powers. Ugh, that'd be a different movie. Or Night at the Museum, that would also be a very different movie if it took place in here, in the old beetle room. Number 4, Vatican secrets. The archives, first of all, they're 53 miles long. There's around 35,000 volumes of secret catalog. The Vatican's secret archives are no joke. They're very real, but in order to see them for yourselves, it's gonna take some time. A lot of time. We don't have any time, really. The codexes aren't public, hence why I'm including them. Only highly respected scholars can access it after they're 75 years old, so you gotta wait a few birthdays. Their official purpose is to house the Holy See's official paperwork. And of course, it's a treasure trove of anything and everything related to the Pope, as well as these long lost ancient documents, because where else do you safely store a letter from Mary Queen of Scots? The archives, that's where. Dudes are out here hucking cakes at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, we're gonna keep ancient notes locked up, I think. Humans can't be trusted, at least till after you're 75, and then it's like, okay, go take a look. There's also a secret room that contains the 200-foot Tower of the Winds, only accessible by these secret archives, so yeah. There's a lot of cool shit down there.
In our number 3 spot today, we have Taxila. This location was established in 600 BC and was abandoned somewhere around 500 AD, and it remained unidentified until 1863 when Alexander Cunningham, the founder and the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, realized that the directions to get to Taxila were being misinterpreted. The site was first excavated by John Marshall, who worked there for 20 years. This area has become famous because it holds the remains of several settlements, the earliest of which dates back to around 1000 BC. This location was designated as a World Heritage Site in 1980 for a multitude of reasons, but perhaps most importantly because the ruins of the 4 settlements throughout history reveal the pattern of urban evolution through more than 5 centuries, and the value of that kind of insight cannot be overstated. There are even accounts which claim that the University of Ancient Taxila was one of the earliest universities in the world, which is just unbelievable. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Melville Range. This mountain range is found on Cape Melville, which is a part of northeastern Australia's Cape York Peninsula, and although this range isn't as huge as many of the others we have on Earth, it is the home to an isolated rainforest that wasn't really known about until extremely recently. The forest is only accessible by helicopter, and since its first true exploration by scientists in 2013, there has been at least 3 new species of animals already discovered. There have also been endemic plant life found in the range as well. The rocky environment most certainly is a unique feature of this rainforest and is definitely a key feature of why some of the endemic species that live there are the way that they are. It is very cool to be able to see just how this landscape and environment shaped these animals that we're just now getting to know more about. In our number 1 spot today we have Pompeii, one of the most famous lost cities ever. The Roman city of Pompeii was destroyed in 79 AD when the eruption of Mount Vesuvius exploded and volcanic ash was strewn about the city. Fast forward all the way to 1748 when the Duke of Naples had a summer palace built just 24 kilometers south of Naples on Italy's west coast. Through the construction, as those working on the palace began to dig, they started to come across buildings and streets, and from here, once news spread, people began to flock to the area, and it was realized that what had been uncovered was the lost city of Pompeii. Throughout the Victorian times, people would come to see as more of this town was uncovered, and they found an amphitheater, a forum, houses, and shops. Everything you'd expect a town to have, this one was just ancient and buried. Now the ancient city of Pompeii is one of the most visited tourist attractions in the entire world, and excavations still continue on, with secrets always being revealed.